Hello everybody, my name is Carl and I'm the co-founder of Music Soft Toys. Here at Music Soft Toys, we specialise in soft toys in the shape of your favourite musical instruments, just like these. Now in today's video, I'm actually going to discuss the cost of being an online retailer. So we're an e-commerce business and we use a variety of distribution channels in order to sell our products. So we have our own website, which is musicsofttoys.com, and we use other channels such as other marketplaces. We use the likes of Etsy, we use eBay, we previously used Amazon, and we also have online retailers such as the music store in the Trafford Centre and Cheshire Oaks. The purpose of my video today is to just break down the costs of what it is, what it's like to be an online retailer. Now, I was having a conversation recently with somebody and they were asking me about the types of charges that are actually made by these platforms when you're selling online. Now, I don't mean for this to be a political or economic video, but obviously things are quite tough in the UK at the moment. So a lot of people are actually looking at other ways to make money, little side hustles, alternative earnings, for example. And before we actually launched Music Soft Toys, I didn't really have an idea of how the platforms work or the extent of the charges that we faced from trading on there. Now, I will say this video isn't designed to be me complaining about these platforms. I'm fully aware that those distribution channels for me are a choice. I choose to retail and to advertise on them. So it's not a critical video. It's more a video designed to help people who are maybe looking at moving into this space just better understand exactly how much it's going to cost and the type of fees that are involved. So we just thought, obviously after the Christmas rush, things are a little bit quieter on the retail front. We have a big push up to Christmas, and in the beginning of January, things tend to calm down a little bit. However, with the first week of January, we've had a couple of Etsy orders come in, and I've checked on the app and I've got an idea of what my fees and charges are for the first week of January. So I'm just going to run through these with you now. Apologies, they're on my phone, on the Etsy app, so you're going to have to bear with me while I run through these with you. So as I say, we're looking solely at Etsy at this moment in time. So on Etsy alone, this week, we've had 2 orders for 3 products. One order is to be sent to the UK, and the second order is to be sent to America. So the total of orders that have come through this week totals £63.04. Now that order amount includes postage and packaging as well. So that is what the clients have paid, and that is the total value of sales that I have made on Etsy so far in January. Now, to break down the fees for this, there are quite a number of actual individual fees that come off this amount. So the first thing that we do have is a listing fee. So that's the fee for just literally putting the item on the website. So for January so far, my listing fees have been 45p. So that's not too bad. I then also have the next one is transaction fees. So that's fees on both sales that have gone through. So the transaction fees on Etsy are 6.5% of the total order value, excluding tax. Okay, so they're charged every time a sale is made on the Etsy marketplace. So the transaction fees for this first week in January total £4.09. Now, on top of the transaction fee, Etsy also charge you a processing fee. Now, the processing fee is 4% of the total order plus an extra 20 pence. And this is charged on all sales made through the Etsy payments platform. Okay, so that's for processing payments. Those processing fees for the first week of January total £3.05. Now, in addition to those fees, Etsy lists what's called a regulatory operating fee, which is 0.32% of the order total, excluding tax. And basically, the way they explain this is that sellers in certain countries where the cost of doing business has increased due to local regulations are charged a small regulatory operating fee. So the way I read that, and I haven't looked into it, is that these are charges levied in certain countries to Etsy, and Etsy is then just passing that on to sellers on their platform. To be honest with you, it's not too much. It's 20 pence. On top of the regulatory operating fee, so yes, there are more, we've got VAT on seller fees. Now, for anyone who's not based in the UK, our VAT rate is 20%. So that'll apply to UK sellers. Anyone who's maybe using the Etsy platform in different locations will maybe be charged a different rate. Okay, so the VAT that has also been deducted from my cost of sales is £4.80. So in total, from the £63.04 that I made, £12.59 has gone in VAT and Etsy fees. Unfortunately, they are not the only deductions that have been made. When you're using the likes of eBay, Etsy and Amazon, for example, these online retailers, the online platforms, they do tend to be the go-to platform of choice for e-commerce businesses. Now, that being said, they also make those platforms extremely competitive. So as an online retailer, if you're wanting to be seen or you're wanting your products to be boosted up the listings, you also have to invest in those platforms on marketing and advertising and ad spend. Okay, so that's an additional cost. So what you can do on Etsy, you can opt for them to do some marketing for you. You can set a daily budget, which can be as little as £1 or anything up to £100 plus a day. Okay, and they'll do the online marketing for you. So I've only got, with it being January, when we got to the week in between Christmas and New Year, I made the choice. I thought January is going to be slow. I'll reduce the marketing and budget fee, purely on the basis of if sales are going to be slow, and naturally a lot of people haven't got a disposable income in early January, I thought there's no point, for me personally, there was no point in putting a lot of money into the marketing and advertising if people ultimately are not going to be shopping online, especially given the nature of our product. Okay, so in January alone, again we're on the 7th of January, the cost for my Etsy ads has been £9.10. Additionally, Etsy have also published some off-site ads. So that might be other channels that they use as a platform, Google for example, or maybe other online marketing campaigns, and that has been a total of £7.06. So again, to take the original £63.04, we've minus the £12.59 for all the Amazon platform fees, and we've got to take another £16.16 off for Etsy marketing seller services. essentially. So that basically means my net profit on Etsy for the first week of January is £34.29. Now, that's the net profit on Etsy. What Etsy do not take into account is I've also got two parcels to post. I've got one to the UK and I've got to send a second parcel to the US. So my courier and logistics charges have then got to come off the £34.29 that I have made. The other thing that Etsy doesn't take into account, because it doesn't log this information, is my original cost to buy the goods that I'm selling. So my original purchase costs. So the £34.29 isn't a representative figure of net profit. That is what you're left after Etsy have essentially taken their pound of flesh. So if we move on to the postage costs, when I'm posting within the UK, I'll use Royal Mail Tracked 48. That allows me to provide the buyer with a tracking number for a little bit of peace of mind so they can see when the parcel's on the way. For the international postage, I'll choose an international tracked option. Again, it's peace of mind for the seller that they can see exactly where their item is, they can see when it's been posted, when it's left the UK, and when it's arrived in their country and being processed their side with their local postage carrier. So to post the items in the UK, I'll send them as a small parcel and tracked 48. So that costs me, apologies if you can hear that, that's my dog in the background. So that cost me £3.55. So that's £3.55 that then needs to come off the £34.29 that I made. Okay. Now, as you'll understand, the international postage is more expensive than that. So the international postage is a base cost of £11.70. Now, unfortunately, with international post, and especially to the US, that isn't all. I also have a customs fee that I need to pay of £2.70. And then also, I need to pay the Royal Mail on top of the actual postage charge, a handling fee. So again, it's a handling fee of 50p, but again, additional fees on top of the postage, another £3.20. So that brings my total postage to send one item to the US to £14.90. Okay, £14.90 to the US, an additional £3.55 to the UK brings my postage total to £18.45. So of the original £63.04, Etsy left me with £34.29. Of that £34.29, I then need to take off an extra £18.45, which then leaves me with £15.84. £15.84 of the original £63 of sales. So essentially, from a transaction, two transactions that I sold this month or this week, okay, 74.9% of that amount has gone in fees and postage. Okay, again, that doesn't take into account my original cost to purchase the goods either. Furthermore, I'm quite fortunate that my business has relatively low overheads. I typically operate as an online e-commerce retailer, so I don't have any rent or storage to pay on any sort of commercial premises, but there are other associated costs such as tax and other fees essentially. But yeah, that's where it brings us to. So as you can see from the transaction itself, Etsy is actually quite expensive, and as a percentage of your sales cost, they take quite a lot. Furthermore, if you increase your advertising budget on Etsy, what they're putting out will obviously ultimately the end goal is that they achieve more sales as a result, but the marketing and advertising spend also increased quite significantly. Now, from personal experience, and I'll be honest with you, this is from more of an anecdotal comment as opposed to me sitting down and analysing the figures. As with any platform, they encourage you to keep spending and spending and spending and increasing your spending on a monthly basis with regards to your ad budget essentially. Um, so, for example, you might have a set of £5 a day. You might then increase that to 10, 15, whatever you want. It's that is within your control. Um, I took my ad spend from roughly £10 a day and up to £25. I'll be honest with you, the correlation in terms of the increase of sales did not correlate with the increase in the ad spend. So if I've increased my ad spend by an extra 150%, I didn't see that equivalent rise in my sales, unfortunately, last year. So if you are looking at setting up an online business, you just need to be careful. You need to factor these things in. There are a lot of charges that you don't sort of see behind the scenes, and when you are looking to launch yourself on these platforms, sometimes it's not overly clear. Sometimes it's an equation that you have to try and work out for yourself. Again, we had the same with Amazon. Amazon, to be honest with you, is increasingly difficult because at first I distributed all of our stock to Amazon, so then we were getting charged per square foot for holding physical stock in their warehouses. So again, to be honest with you, the fees on that were absolutely horrific for us as a retailer. And again, we looked at Amazon, largest online retailer in the world, the largest online marketplace. But again, it's a super competitive environment, and you've got to stand out. Now, Amazon, as well as Etsy, they'll charge you for all sorts on there. I don't know if you've ever purchased off Amazon. Sometimes you'll have a small script of text across the bottom for describing the product. Sometimes it looks fancy. Again, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for your marketing, your advertising, as well as marketing and advertising. There's separate charges for your sponsored ads to promote your listings. And it goes on and on and on in terms of actual fees. So yeah, what I would say is obviously if you are looking to set up a e-commerce business in 2026, it can be very good, it can be lucrative, but at the same time, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of hard work. You'll see a lot of people selling Amazon courses online, and they'll always talk about the turnover, essentially the top line in terms of product sales. But as you can see, is obviously if you're deducting 70-80% in fees, the actual amount you'll make on a monthly or an annual basis can be substantially less than what these like course gurus are actually advertising. So that for me, that was Etsy. Again, what I might do is just make a few more videos of the different distribution channels we use. Because like I said, we have obviously our own website, musicsoftoys.com. That again comes with its own fees. There's hosting fees, there's paying for the domain, there's paying for the website. We get charged when we process payments on there. But obviously from a transaction, from processing fees, so on and so forth, they're less. We use other marketplaces, for example, The Range UK. We distribute product from there. We also have high street retailers in the UK. Obviously, we have to make sure we sell the items, so there's a margin in for retailers as well. So what I might do is just make a few more of these videos. Again, I'm not complaining. I know what I got myself into in terms of, I know there's fees to pay, there's charges to pay. It's not a video criticizing any specific platform. I'm trying to obviously use it as an opportunity just to inform people a little bit more about, obviously it will help them price the product, for example. So if you've created something that you want to sell and you've got a price in mind, hopefully this video will just help you piece together types of fees that you'll be looking at absorbing to make sure, again, obviously if you're looking to run a business, that there's profit in for you as a company. So I hope that's been useful. Again, my name's Carl. I'm co-founder of Music Soft Toys. I look after all the day-to-day of the business. I look after all the back-end operations, the sales, the marketing, working with retailers, working with the platforms. I do all the business banking, you name it. It typically comes through my office. So I hope that was useful. I hope you're able to take some value from that. And if there's any questions or anything you want to know, just put some comments on the video, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.